He was on the plane, expecting a routine flight, nothing more. But then it happened. A simple seat became a battleground. One moment, he was just a passenger. The next, he was being forced out, not for what he did, but who he was. And what he did next would shake the airline to its core. How far would someone go when justice feels personal and the world seems stacked against him? This isn't just a story about a flight. It's about a moment that changed everything. And the question everyone is still asking: what happens when the rules aren't fair? It was another busy morning for Marcus, the kind of day he usually handled with calm and precision. As the CEO of a rising company, he was used to long hours, tough decisions, and a life where control mattered. He loved his work, his team, and the rare moments of quiet between meetings. Today, though, he was looking forward to something simple: a first-class seat on a flight, a brief chance to relax before the next big board meeting. He had no idea that what seemed like a routine journey would turn into a confrontation that questioned everything he thought he knew about fairness, power, and respect.
Marcus settled into his first-class seat, expecting the quiet comfort he had paid for. The flight attendants offered smiles, drinks, and small talk, routine gestures in a space designed for ease. But then he noticed her. A passenger glancing his way, her expression tight, almost strained. At first, he thought it was coincidence, the subtle discomfort of air travel. Then came the words, low but sharp, "You can't sit here."
He looked up, startled. "Excuse me?" She repeated it, louder, more insistent. His heart pounded. Was there a problem with his ticket, a miscommunication? He handed it over, expecting resolution, but instead she shook her head and gestured for him to follow. The cabin felt smaller suddenly, the hum of engines replaced by the sharp rhythm of his own heartbeat. Other passengers watched, some curious, some uneasy, as he was escorted out. The reason for the confrontation whispered behind polite hands. He was black, and the white passenger in the seat had priority. Marcus's mind raced. How could something so absurd, so painfully unjust be happening in a space meant for safety and comfort? He had led companies, negotiated deals with billion-dollar stakes, and handled crises with composure. Yet here, he was powerless, humiliated in front of strangers, forced to leave a seat he had legally purchased. His pulse accelerated, a mix of anger, disbelief, and fear swirling together. Back on the aisle, the flight attendant's insistence collided with his growing outrage. Each step toward the back of the plane felt heavier, as though the weight of history, the unspoken rules, the prejudice ingrained in countless interactions was pressing down on him. Other passengers whispered, some avoiding eye contact, others glancing with thinly veiled judgment. Marcus realized he wasn't just facing a single moment of discrimination. He was confronting a culture that had allowed this to happen, silently condoning inequity even in modern spaces.
The humiliation stung, but it also ignited something else: determination. Marcus knew he couldn't let this incident slide. He returned to his phone, drafting messages, calling contacts, each word measured but fueled by righteous anger. He reached the airline's executives, escalating the situation quietly but firmly, demanding accountability. The tension escalated further when he realized the airline's initial response was defensive, hesitant, almost dismissive. That only fueled the fire within him.
By the time the plane landed, Marcus had transformed from a shocked passenger into a man on a mission. He would not allow this injustice to be ignored, not by the airline, not by the public, not by himself. But what came next was even more unexpected, a decision that would reverberate far beyond the cabin, a move that challenged not just one policy, but the entire $120 million budget. The question hung in the air: how far would he go to ensure justice? And how would the airline respond when the consequences hit harder than anyone could anticipate?
Marcus stood in the boardroom, documents and spreadsheets spread before him. But none of that mattered now. His anger simmered, a controlled but unyielding force. The airline's executives had dismissed the incident at first, their polite smiles thin, their words carefully measured. "We'll look into it," they said. But Marcus knew that was code for ignore it. He slammed a report onto the table, the sound echoing through the room. "This isn't just a mistake, this is systemic," he said, voice tight with controlled fury. Every eye turned to him, a mixture of surprise and discomfort. The room had been built for negotiations, for diplomacy. But he wasn't here to negotiate. He was here to make them confront the consequences of their actions. Then came the decision that would shake the company to its core. Marcus froze the airline's $120 million budget, halting expansions, delaying bonuses, and putting every major project under review. The executives' jaws dropped. The hum of the office turned into a tense silence. Some tried to protest, but Marcus's gaze, steady and unwavering, silenced them. "Justice isn't optional," he said. "And this isn't just about one seat on one flight, it's about every policy, every decision, every assumption that allows discrimination to continue." In that moment, Marcus felt the weight of what he had done. This wasn't a symbolic gesture. It was real, impactful, and irreversible. The tension was electric, almost palpable, like the air before a storm. The room seemed to shrink around him, as if the walls themselves recognized the magnitude of the act. And yet, even as victory flickered, a question lingered in the air, unspoken but heavy. How far would they push back? How strong was the system he had just challenged? Marcus had struck a blow, but the fight wasn't over. Not yet. The consequences were about to unfold in ways nobody in that room could predict.
The airline couldn't ignore Marcus's move. Within days, internal investigations were launched, policies were revised, and the story made headlines around the world. But for Marcus, the victory wasn't just in the headlines. It was in reclaiming his dignity, in standing firm against an injustice that had been brushed aside for too long. He knew this one moment wouldn't erase decades of systemic bias, but it was proof that one person could demand accountability, could force the powerful institution to confront its own failings.
As he reflected, Marcus realized the stakes went far beyond him or even the airline. It was about every moment of subtle prejudice, every silent compromise, every policy that quietly favored some while excluding others. His fight had sparked conversations, opened eyes, and challenged assumptions, but it also left a lingering weight. The world wasn't suddenly fair, and the struggle wasn't over. He returned to his daily life changed, more aware of the invisible battles so many face, and more determined to amplify voices that had been ignored for too long. This wasn't just his story. It was a mirror held up to society, a stark reminder that racism isn't always loud, but it's always present. And it takes courage, persistence, and sometimes confrontation to shine a light on it.
So, as we reflect on what happened in that first-class cabin, we must ask ourselves, how often do we stay silent when injustice occurs? How many opportunities do we let pass before taking a stand? Marcus's story is a call to action, a challenge to not look away, and a reminder that fairness is not automatic, it must be demanded.